welcome back to the Dean Obeidallah Show. It's Friday, the 13th. That's right, Friday, June 13th. Joining me, three returning champions. Dr. Andrea Jones-Rooy is here, a scientist, stand-up comic, PhD, and circus performer. Podcast, Behind the Data. It is good to see you. Andrea, what is in the order? What is your order? What are you first? Scientist, social scientist, circus performer, comic?
That's a good question. Dog owner first, and then and then I would say scientist, then comedian, then circus performer.
Very good. Lizz Winstead, we know the order that she's in. It's a comedian, co-creator of The Daily Show, tireless activist for reproductive freedom. She's the founder of Abortion Access Front and hosts a podcast, Feminist Buzzkills. Lizz, nice to see you.
Good to see you. Great to be here.
And it looks so pleasant where you are. I get it because we're doing this Zoom and there's a beautiful window. It looks like a painting. It can't be.
I'm in Minnesota. You know, nice the state that Tim Walz has burned to the ground.
Right.
And you can see the verdant burning behind me. If there's a such thing as verdant burning, it's happening in my window.
And also joined is Alex Pearlman, that yelling guy from the internet, stand-up comic, more than 3 million followers on TikTok, which is too many. It's got to be stopped.
It's too many.
I'm sorry?
It's too many. It's too many.
You should give me like 500,000. And your podcast, Too Many Tabs with Pearlmania 500. Is that correct?
That's correct. And I just released my first ever stand-up special on my YouTube channel. It's called Daddy's Day. And it's I've been doing stand-up for 23 years. Never wanted to record a special. Got a chance. And it's the first time I actually liked one. So I'm trying to promote it, Dean.
Congratulations.
What better way of doing it than coming on your show on Friday the 13th and making sure it's going to be a rousing success?
Exactly. Well, I'm going to go click on it so you have at least one more view when we're done. I'll subscribe. And it's called Daddy's Day?
It's called Daddy's Day. Yeah, you can find it on my channel at Pearlmania 500. And just look me up on anything. I'm posting it everywhere.
Let's just start with just one takeaway because, we woke up this morning to bombing. Last night it happened. I thought Trump was going to end the wars. Like, did I miss something? Because he was going to end the Ukraine war in 24 hours and Gaza never would have happened. But what I'm seeing now is their Ukraine war is still going on. It's getting worse. Gaza's horrible. You've got now a new war between Iran and Iraq. We're on the verge of a civil war. There's also the Trump-Elon Musk war. So what am I missing about ending the wars? And none of this would have happened if I was president. Dr. Jones-Rooy, what's your take on this here?
Well, there's two possibilities here, Dean, and these are from my official doctor capacity. One is he doesn't know what the word end means. Like he might just be wrong about that and thinks that end means continues or increases or worsens. Could be. Hypothesis two is that he suffers from the same problem I do, but I know better than to mess with geopolitics and international affairs, which is I'll say things that I can't do. Like, sure, I can get you that PowerPoint deck by tomorrow at noon. And I know that I can't do it, but I say that I can because I'm a people pleaser. So maybe he's just overestimating his own ability to get things done. Like me, he needs a deadline and we haven't really given him one. So he's just pushing and pushing and pushing and getting extensions on these various promises. The difference is that if I don't send a PowerPoint deck, literally nothing in the world changes. Whereas when he doesn't do what he says he will, everything gets set on fire, which seems to be what's happening.
Now, Lizz, I have a question. How did Trump close any deal ever? He's the worst negotiator I've ever seen in my life. He's awful. Like, I'm not kidding. He's a complete failure. He's closed no deals. Even on tariffs, we have one concept of a plan with the UK. That's not even a closed deal. That may never close. He's awful.
He's awful because his two-step approach is, yeah, I'll do that. And then the second thing is, oh, wait, this is hard. Mm-hmm. And so when that's your 1-2, your punch is usually, I'm now going to sit in a corner with some Funyuns and my own tears and hope that it goes away. So I feel like that's the third prong. So I think he's just sitting in a corner eating Funyuns with his diaper and his catheter being like, and then Stephen Miller's like, we've got it handled. Just finish the Funyuns and just don't worry about it.
Just sign that document. That could be because, it was funny on the Ukraine war, he literally said, well, this is hard and it can close like in a week. We're just going to stop trying. And even Marco Rubio repeated that. I'm like, you're Secretary of State. You don't say that stuff, but they do. Alex, what's your take on the art of the deal? Were we sold a lie on Donald Trump? Was he not really a deal maker? Is that what's going on?
Well, listen, everybody here on this panel and all of your listeners, when they hear the word 1984, you know what they think? They think of a book. They think of doublespeak. They think of lies. They think of things changing, right? When you look at everything, we've always been at war with East Asia, Eurasia. Eurasia is now our friend, that type of stuff. When Donald Trump hears 1984, you know what he thinks? Good year. 1984 was a great year. It's all I could think. Got a lot of pussy that year. That's what he thinks. And the thing is like we as a nation, I don't think enough. The big problem we have is not enough of our country has dated a narcissist at this level before who will just say anything. And I know that here, saying that here as a Pennsylvanian who's surrounded by undecided Pennsylvania voters, because right after the election, I met a guy at the bank who I've known for a very long time, ran into him, was talking to him. He's like, what are you doing now? I'm like, I do comedy. I do online stuff about politics and current events. He goes, oh, so you must love that I voted for Trump. And I froze. I was like, what? And he was like, yeah. I was like, why? Why did you do that? I was like, Jeff, you're a good guy. You're a smart guy. He's an asshole. Why would you do this? And he went, he's going to end the wars. And I looked at in the middle of the bank. I went, Jeff, you're a fucking idiot. And now I don't go to the bank anymore. I changed banks just so I don't run into Jeff. But I should have stayed. Jeff should have left.
That's
the energy we need.
Right.
I thought you were gonna, because it seemed like it was like you guys were actually on a bank robbery together. You're like, hands up, everyone! What, you voted for Trump? Like that was the scene. Like it's a funny thing. Like, no, hang on for a second. Put the money in that bag. He voted for Trump. Can you believe this guy, Jeff? No names. I'm Mr. Pink. Like, what are you doing? So it's very interesting what we're living through. So we're at the point in the trajectory where you tackle U.S. senators who ask questions to regime officials, which I saw on the History Channel. So this is not new. I thought it was a repeat. I'm like, oh, but it actually happened yesterday. It's not something that we saw happen like in Latin America or Eastern Europe or Russia or something like that. So Andrea Jones-Rooy, what is your take on the Senator Alex Padilla saying, I'm a senator? And they go, he didn't identify himself. We literally heard him identify himself. Like it didn't matter. Nothing. They just lied to our face.
I mean, Alex brought up 1984, and you mentioned the History Channel, and that's exactly it, is that not only is our descent into dictatorship unpleasant, it's predictable. And all of this is just classic playbook moves and, making a scene and doing it. It's almost as though we're all in some kind of complicated dictatorship Truman show where it's just like, they're just like, use the script from before, or rework it a tiny bit, ask ChatGPT to change some lines here and there, get some new actors, and we're just going to recast Saved by the Bell dictator version. It's really, it was one of those where, and I hate that this is happening, and it's not just for this event, where it's like you read about it, you're like, well, that is insane and out of control and dangerous, and I'm almost not surprised, which reduces all of our outrage because we're all outraged about everything, and so you're kind of outraged about nothing, and you just sort of sit there in a paralysis, like, yeah, that's happening because that's what does happen in the movies, and I guess it's happening here. Like, it's shocking and not shocking at the same time.
I had on Dr. Jason Stanley, professor from Yale, who's actually leaving the country. He wrote about fascism, and another fashion expert on. And the weird thing is, they both said very calmly, like, nothing is new. This is color by numbers, fascism and autocracy. And they said it very clinical. I'm like, but we're living through it. They go, no, it's not good. But they're saying nothing here. At least they would have given him points for doing something original. So, Liz, I mean, we see this with Padilla. Kristi Noem's lies. He didn't identify himself. Oh, we didn't know who he was. There's only 2 U.S. senators in the entire state of California. He's been there for like 5-6 years. There's videos of them talking in the past. Where are we going? What's happening?
Well, there's a couple things. I'm wondering if lies actually are also lip fillers, because whenever she lies, those lips plump. And my second take is, I'm starting to truly believe that her dog killed itself because he just couldn't take it anymore. He was like, you want to know what? You can say you killed me if that makes you happy, but I got to get out of this fucking place because I'm a dog, and like consistent commands are like literally what gives me like a purpose as a fucking animal. And you aren't consistent. You're a freak. I can't live here. Bye. And I'm taking the goat.
Do you think, by the way, that she's like a new version of Pinocchio? Like every time she lies, her lips get bigger?
Yes, I absolutely do.
Lips grow. Look at that.
Or Ozempic. It's either filler or some side effect of Ozempic, because Ozempic seems to be doing the most these days. It's giving men bigger penises. It's just doing everything. So, yeah, I don't know.
Alex, do you think, because there's a picture of Kristi Noem from a few years ago, and it's like a different person, which at this point, I think she should continue with the facial stuff, not for vanity, but to hide her identity, because when she leaves, she's going to be charged with crimes against humanity. Like some of these guys are going to be the ICC stuff.
Yeah.
So she might want to do like a face-off type of thing with Nicolas Cage or something like that.
It would be a better look. I mean, you were talking, there's a few things that we've been brought up so far. And one of the things you guys kept talking about was like how it feels like it's from a movie. Specifically, it's from the TV show Andor, the Star Wars TV show. This actually happens in the end of season 2, episode 9. They're literally dragging away a senator who is yelling, "They're doing a massacre in the place I represent." And everyone is just standing there looking. I mean, listen, this moment, the biggest telling point that I've seen was that some senators' statements came forward of like, I think some senators are starting slowly to click in their head that their privilege and their lapel pins will not save them, that they are at the same level as the rest of us. We saw statements from Lisa Murkowski, who was like, this was terrible. We saw statements from John Fetterman where he said, the fucking freak. John Fetterman tried to blame Alex Padilla himself while actually he's my senator and the biggest regret of my entire life.
There's no way he blamed Padilla.
He said that we need to bring down the temperature on all sides. He implied that this was all, they wouldn't have done this if they weren't scared. You know, it's the old he was coming right for us type of defense. He wrote it in a way that you can only have with brain damage. So he screamed it speech to text into his phone because AI assistants are the only assistants he can still hire because he's too busy FaceTiming while driving down the road at 60 miles per hour, screaming to Benjamin Netanyahu, "Am I a good boy yet?" Sorry, I know that's a different segment. I hate my senator.
That's fine.
John Fettermaga. Anyway, but this whole moment, what we're seeing happen with senators and what we've seen happen to a congressperson as well. Remember, there was a congresswoman in Newark, New Jersey, who was arrested and put up on charges as they arrested the mayor of Newark, New Jersey, at the same time for standing up to ICE. ICE itself is now masked stormtrooper Gestapo. And some people, ICE themselves, have complained, do not compare us to Gestapo. You both use acronyms. Gestapo itself is an acronym. In German, they use 2 letters. In America, we use 1. We thought ICE sounded cool, literally. These guys are now working, and we're seeing them across the United States. As people keep speaking up, no matter what their level and privilege, people are going to learn that the ideas that they had in their head of how protected they are, they don't have it. Elon learned that the hard way, and he's the richest man in the world. A lot of people are going to be learning this, and this is just the start. I wish I had more funny jokes about it, man. I really do.
Well, also, I kind of feel too like if you want to know why Trump wants to cut aid to Ukraine, it's because he's got to deploy it to every American city. Like, honestly, it's like we can't send tanks to Ukraine because we have to send them to Florida.
And that shit. They literally just did that for Israel. They sent something like 20,000 missiles to protect from incoming rocket fire that were supposed to go to Ukraine, got reverted to Israel. It's the same thing. Reason why we have MRAPs in the street. What we're seeing right now, all the tactics are exactly what the people of Baghdad saw, exactly what the people of Kabul saw. We're seeing 20 years of colonial fascism come back to our shores because we're not currently doing it somewhere else overseas, except for in the case of when we have gone and contracted it out to the IOF.
I mean,
but they didn't vote for it. Like they didn't vote for it in 2004. And you know, fuck you. You voted for it every time.
Like there wasn't Steins.
Let me ask, Andrea Jones-Rooy, since you're a doctor, let me go to you.
All right,
I had all these experts on about fascism stuff, and they go, in the modern era, the way people become tyrants in democracies is no longer troops in the streets and tanks in the streets. It's from within. Well, Trump is doing literally troops in the streets, and there's going to be tanks in the streets Saturday, and he's doing from within. He's got all the boxes checked here. Like, I don't know why people are not screaming. The U.S. Marines are being deployed to Sunset Boulevard. There's something wrong with that. Like, what's your point of the I'm going to be at Sunset and Vine. Like, oh my God, that's kind of rough. Take the water with you. The Marines are trained to kill. They should be trained to kill. They're not trained to do police work. They're trained to use lethal force. Anything that's a threat, shoot it. And that's the way they should be because they're deployed. Now we have the U.S. Marines about to be deployed and 4,000 National Guard troops against the objection of a governor. And people are like, it's story 3 now in the news. I don't even understand what's going on anymore.
That's right. You have to scroll pretty far. It used to be that you could read the first couple headlines like at the top of the news and be like, well, that's horrible. And then you scroll down and it's like bread recipes. But now it's like just 20 horrible things, then your bread recipes.
And Wordle.
And Wordle.
But I also want to say too.
And Jake Tapper.
Yeah, and Jake Tapper. But I also want to say too that just to folks who haven't been as granular as maybe we are, when he federalized the National Guard. The word California is not in that order. It
Right.
says any place where, conflict is breaking out or perceived. I mean, I'm paraphrasing, or perceived conflict. So he's basically got blanket permission. Everybody who's going out tomorrow, just know that, to send anybody he wants anywhere. And unless your governor is going to be forceful and try to stop it, I don't even know if they can.
Well,
There's
go ahead. Andrea, please.
There's a very fun book out there called The Dictator's Handbook, which
That's
is
fun.
it's very fun.
I hope they make a TV series.
Exactly. It's just the news, but it is a book that came out a handful of years ago, and it's exactly, Dean, to your point. It's a book by a number of political scientists, Bruce Blainer de Mesquita and some others, where they basically say, here's how you be a dictator in the most efficient way possible, and you do it. And it's meant to be so that we can all see it coming. And it's all it's internal politics, it's getting a winning coalition, it's getting people on your side, and it's slowly consolidating power. It's basically not doing all the extra tank and National Guard and all this other nonsense that Trump is doing. So Trump is doing, it's boring, it's predictable, and it's inefficient. So all this Doge efficiency, lower the deficit, I mean, all of this stuff is very expensive and literally, according to scientists, unnecessary. If you want to be a dictator, you don't have to do all this other stuff.
The next thing will be the Reichstag fire.
That's right.
what he will do, just like he's just looking for that big emergency. He had the little emergency in California. But look here, Kristi Noem, this didn't get much press, which is kind of bizarre. And I wrote about it for Substack, and I mentioned it on my show yesterday, because the reason Senator Padilla yelled out, he was there with permission, federal building. He's watching the press conference. I watched interviews with him, and he said it. The governor started calling for the removal of, Kristi Noem started calling for like the removal of the governor and the mayor. And that's what made him yell out. And I'll read the line, which he said. And this was a prepared speech. They are telling you, Trump people always tell you what they're going to do. This is what they're working to. She talked about their forces, I guess the troops and the Marines, are going to remain in LA until the city is, quote, liberated from the socialist and burdensome leadership that this governor and mayor have placed on this country. They are literally using terms that Bush used to attack Iraq. We're going to liberate the place from these socialist leaders. And the media is like, well, they didn't mean it that way. That was in a prepared speech. That's what made Padilla yell. So, Alex, I mean, what's going on? Why aren't more people yelling about the fact she literally called for removal of elected officials that they dubbed socialists, and that is their playbook. They're going to do it. You're either going to have to surrender to Trump, or he's going to remove you like Putin did and put in pro-Trump puppets.
So the most offensive part of that statement was her calling Gavin Newsom a socialist. I was like, Jesus Christ, baby, there is nobody.
If only.
I would come on. Everybody knows the line about Gavin Newsom. What is it? He hates homeless people and Republicans, and he's all out of homeless people right now, okay? Gavin Newsom is not a socialist, but they're going to paint him with the same exact brush. It's the thing I've been screaming about since last year all across the internet. There's been a divide that's been purposely put, especially by the tech elites, when it comes to using their algorithmic little buttons that they use, where they've been dividing the left. They've been trying to divide the younger internet leftists, people who will call themselves a leftist, a socialist, a communist, all these different things, from what they call liberals. But Kristi Noem and Donald Trump and Stephen Miller, anybody who is to the left of them is a liberal. We don't seem to understand right now. We have such a break on our side in our heads that we can't tell who's on our side right now when it comes to the left. That's the first part. But the reason why you're not seeing more people freak out is because there's so much happening at the same time. That's why you're seeing across the internet, and you're seeing across some circles of the media, of people trying to choose different things and call it a distraction. And I've been saying repeatedly, there are no distractions. Right now, they're doing multiple evil things at the same fucking time. It's called multitasking. They're not pretending over here that Elon and Trump are having a fight. No, Elon and Trump are having a fight. They're also invading California. They're also funding this thing over here. They're also rounding people up. Everything, it's people are acting like it's 4D chess. You're playing against a gorilla that's throwing shit at you right now and is about to rip your dick off. All right? That's what's happening. He's not trying to sucker punch you.
You're going to get some angry letters from your gorilla listeners, Dean. I don't think they appreciate that.
No, they take the June and July off generally because it's really warm, so they don't stay in New York at that time.
My apologies to the Harambe community.
Lizz Winstead and Alex Pearlman. So, Liz, this Saturday, we'll get to the good stuff later about the No Kings protest. But what's interesting, and right before we started recording, I saw the they're fearful of the big military parade for Trump, that there might be, quote, a Tiananmen Square moment where somebody runs out in front of a tank. And I'm like, that's actually just got reported. That's like real, like from sources in the Pentagon. And it makes sense because Trump was taunting people. No, if you protest, I'll read his exact words so everyone sees it. Here's it exactly. It goes, for those who want to protest, they're going to be met with very big force. They'll be met with very heavy force, which I'm not sure if they're different, heavy and big. It's a thesaurus type of situation. But the point is, if you protest, you're going to be hit with force. Someone might run in front of a tank. And Trump will say, go. I mean, what do you
Well, if no one does, I'm sure they'll just use AI to put the Alex Padilla footage in front of the tank and call that call it that. I mean, I think that the divine intervention of the weather seems like it might be on our side. They are predicting torrential rain.
Really?
Yes, they're predicting really, really torrential rain. I'm in Minnesota right now, and weather moves east. And so we have had for the past 2 days these really violent early summer storms. And they're saying that it's supposed to hit DC on Saturday. So I hope so. Look,
Are these liberal storms? Did you create these liberal storms in Minnesota?
I created these liberal storms.
Yeah,
I mean, I think that we have to just figure out how we're going to pay it. A lot of us are going to be out in the streets in our own towns and our own places while this hideous thing is happening. I do also love the sleuths who found the Craigslist ad for the actors, trying to pay $1,000 for folks to be seat sitters. Please, God, tell me it's true. And please tell me people aren't stupid enough to take fight crypto as a fee for sitting through that garbage. But they are. It's like, it's not even surprising that Trump would do this because, first of all, it's really sad that you have to plan your own birthday party to the extent that your guests are the military. Literally, no one wants to come to your party. So you have to fill it full of tanks. It's like, the tanks are even making it look bigger than it is because who wants to celebrate that buckwad?
It's a
His sons, Uday and Pusey don't even want to go.
Right.
It's a mandatory work party.
Yeah.
It's a mandatory work party.
It's 100%.
The commander-in-chief is forcing all of his employees to show up for his birthday party.
Everyone has to laugh at his jokes. It's like the worst party ever. He's spending $50 million of our tax dollars, though, for his birthday party. I mean, it's 45 million, 50 million. I've seen all different estimates.
At least all those federal workers were fired, so we can cover this sort of expense. So I think it's funny. That's a good way of putting it, Liz, that he's having a birthday party that he planned it. The military has to be there. And I wonder if it rains, if he tries to have one in a few weeks from now again, or we just don't know. The Marine Corps 250th anniversary is in the fall. So he might try to do this. But look, military parades are not part of American history. And there's a reason why that even the founders didn't want a standing army. They had a big debate about that. They were very worried about that. They didn't want a monarchy, even the look of it. And Trump doesn't give a shit. I mean, this is what we're dealing with. So, Andrea, are you going? Well, we'll talk about at the end. We're going to leave it upbeat about the. You asking if I'm going to attend the parade? I'll be there.
You're going to be at the parade.
I read a really great Craigslist ad, and so I'm looking forward to serving my country.
How do I get my cryptocurrency? How do they send that to me? I'm not really sure. Is it by Venmo? Is it by something else? All right,
crypto.
Let's take a quick break. We're going to come back and talk about more involving Trump, but I think some fun stuff like Kennedy Center and maybe even something involving Kanye West, which just caught my eye, and it's not political, but we need one break. So let's take a break. We'll come back with more of what just happened right after this. And welcome back, Dean Obeidallah Show. It is still Friday the 13th, and we're still joined by Dr. Andrea Jones-Rooy, Lizz Winstead, Alex Pearlman. By the way, so Americans are watching this shit play out. And Quinnipiac, very well-respected polling, good methodology, came out midweek, and the poll took place from last Friday through the weekend. So people are starting to see the National Guard stuff, not all of it, but some of it's in there. And in it, Trump has the lowest approval rating of his second term, 38%. He's finally fallen below 40% in a real poll. If you look at Rasmussen, he's got like 85% approval. It's like Saddam Hussein numbers on Rasmussen. But on Quinnipiac, 38%. On immigration, only 43% approve. And on mass deportations, 40% approve. That's it. And one of the biggest things to me is I always look at strongly approve versus strongly disapprove because that's where emotion is. Strongly approve is at 30%. Strongly disapprove is almost 50%. It's almost 2-to-1. The anger is on the side of people who despise this guy right now. That's first term numbers. So Dr. Andrea Jones-Rooy, as someone who loves data, you have behind the data. Tell us about this data. What does it say to you?
Well, I can say, Dean, and I'm not just trying to flatter you, though I would be excited to flatter you as well, is that
Please.
exactly that, looking at the distinction between, like, strongly agree or strongly approve versus disagree. So I was at 538 a number of years ago, and I always wanted them to add that to their tracker on approval ratings, because it's the emotion and it's the strongly disapprove are the people that are going to take to the streets, that are going to be part of the resistance. It's the disapprove who are like, we're sort of less interested. And then that's the difference between the strongly approve, where strongly approve are his MAGA people who are never gonna go away. But the fact that there are so many more strongly disapprove is very encouraging and fun. I mean, it just feels, I know it's just one poll and you want to look at a whole bunch of different polls and all that, but it is nice to go below that 40% that he just seemed like we just could not get past it forever and ever and ever. And so, but it's also horrible, right? I would rather him not be messing up the whole country and have the numbers be higher than I want them to be, if I could choose.
I understand. That's a good point. So at 38%, it's going to cost them more than $30,000 in crypto to get people there.
That's right.
You're going to have to do eBay kind of thing, like 2,000, 3,000. Alex, what do you think? I mean, do you talk in Pennsylvania, any sense where Trump is on a more anecdotal level?
I mean, on the anecdotal level, the shrines are coming down. So when we have
they are.
Yeah, if you're in the rural areas in some of the, especially in a swing state, you'll see these Trump shrines at the saddest houses you've ever seen in your entire life. Their whole front yard will be covered in Trump shit. They'll have a Trump sign on the side of their house. They'll have a Trump flag. They'll have a cardboard cutout of Trump clearly looking over them in their bedroom, all those different things. And you can see them. And over time, those kind of vanished after January 6th. And then we didn't really see them until about October. And then they've been staying up. And slowly, like the neighbor who leaves the Christmas decorations up because they're going through a breakup right now. And they just really haven't gotten around to it. Now they're starting to notice. And I'm starting to see the flags coming down. The signs are coming down. All of those different things are starting to vanish on that side of stuff. But also in general, there was a while here where when people, you were playing more of a game of footsie with people to see if someone you didn't know, how they kind of felt. Because it's very hard these days to actually tell from the way somebody's dressing or how they look, how they voted, right? So there was more of a game of footsie of just like, oh yeah, no, man, things going on right now are terrible. They were better in October 2024, right? Is like a thing you would say before. And now you just be like, so that asshole around the country is an asshole, huh? And then the other guy's like, yep. Or they're just like, no, I actually like him. And they're like, well, fuck you. And that's where we are now, 6 months into this, is nobody's playing footsie anymore, where it's getting much more direct of just like, are you with or against? And where people are drawing lines a lot faster.
Well,
I
and
have to applaud your scene work. It's excellent, though.
Thank you.
You brought those little scenes together. Liz, go ahead. Sorry.
And also, just to that point, we're talking about this poll where it's, Trump's approval's at 40, but there was 3 different polls that have come out over the past year. One, this wasteful Democratic $20 million over 2 years study they did on why white guys aren't attracted to the party. And, basically it's like white men are aggrieved and white men feel left out. They don't know how to define their manhood. They're feeling left out. And then another poll just came out this week that Gallup did, that the numbers of men who support abortion rights has dropped to around 40%. Like, and they asked 3 different questions. And then the third poll is white men between like 17 and 25 are heading towards evangelical Christianity, right? So the truth is, and this is what just drives me out of my mind. First of all, stop studying men's sads. First off. Second of all, they want patriarchy. They want unearned power. And they're mad. These polls tell you that every time. The Trump poll settles at 40. And then you've got, and we're moving to the church because that's a place where we are given God-given dominance, or we hate abortion because we can't control a body. It just all makes sense in the course of all of this. Right. It's just that.
Can I ask you, when you said, hang on one second, Alex. Liz, when you say polling of all men, only 40% of men support reproductive freedom rights?
They did the Gallup did a poll, not of all men. They did a poll
younger men.
Of, I don't remember what the demos were on it, actually, to be honest. I don't know where they did their demo, but if you look up Gallup and abortion numbers shrinking, the 3 questions they asked, the gap went really wide. And that's just this is interesting. It's from 2022. So they were actually more pro-choice before they saw what happens when you don't have access to abortion. And that's even creepier.
That's not good.
What I was going to say is, as somebody who's Yeah, somebody who's in the rapidly heading out of the 18 to 49-year-old white guy demographic that is targeted by all this different stuff. It's because a big part of this is because of how much money billionaires have poured into podcasts. When you think of the average man right now at their day job, especially if they have one where they don't interact with a lot of their other employees, they have an AirPod in 8 hours a day. They have one AirPod in as they're moving boxes. They have one AirPod in, or they're playing on Bluetooth on their car. That's where Joe Rogan and these other guys slowly over all of these different things. And I've seen interviews and I've talked to people. I've talked to people who believe that Tim Pool is an independent centrist. I've talked to people who believe that Steven Crowder gives unbiased news. I've talked to people who believe that Tucker Carlson is a good classic journalist, because these are the people, and these are the people who are able to meet them where they are. And where they are is they're at work and they have one AirPod in. They're not talking to their coworker. They're not saying any of this other stuff. They're not getting any pushback from it. They're seeing a constant carousel of these certain characters that are coming through, and peppered in between are JD Vance. Peppered in between are Dan Blazarian. Peppered in between is Andrew Tate. All of these guys are peppered in between on their MMA podcasts, their sports podcasts, their dating podcasts, or all these others. And it's all by design, by people like Peter Thiel, by people like Elon Musk, and other hidden packs that have been out there. You sound like I sound like a crazy person sometimes when I talk about this, but it's very open. It's very open. It's very in the open about how they've been doing this, and you can see it because what happened during the Trump-Elon breakup? Where were the FBI director and where was the vice president of the United States? They were on podcasts.
Yeah,
Podcasts that are currently being run through Spotify. I mean, through Joe Rogan and through Theo Vaughn. They were both sitting there live answering questions and trying to figure out how to spin it in an area where they were able to edit their responses and probably do multiple takes.
but I wonder, Alex, the one thing I always wonder about that is the percentage of people who are desperately looking to lay blame. You know, they have a set of beliefs that they want to lay blame on women, on queer people, Black, brown people.
Yep.
And then those who were searching found them and then found their truth.
It's a trickle down. So they get you at the beginning. And this is actually what Nazis have done for a very long time on the internet. They find a thing that you're interested in that there isn't a lot of people in, and then they take over the space slowly. They make the racism, the sexism, the misogyny, all this different stuff. They make it ironic at first. So you're used to hearing racist jokes. You get used to hearing jokes about women. You get used to hearing these things. And slowly over time, you don't realize that it goes from an irony where we don't actually mean this and we're heightening the situation of we're never actually doing this, to you're marching down the street carrying a tiki torch.
Yeah.
This happens. And this has been happening over decades.
Well, you know, what's his name? Gavin, what's his team who founded the Proud Boys? No,
Gavin McInnes.
Gavin McInnes. I mean, he's the classic study of that
100%.
very thing.
And Steve Bannon studied this through Gamergate, which was a thing that happened 10 years ago.
Yes.
All these different things. Steve Bannon at Breitbart, they tried that. They used it with Milo Yiannopoulos. They did all these different studies, and they were basically testing it live of how can we get people to hate women more based on our video game.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
And they targeted all this shit. I mean, it's all out there in the open.
Alex, even though this wasn't the main topics of the week or something, I just want to ask you, I'm curious because I see like Theo, whatever his name is, and
Theo Vaughn. Yeah.
Theo Vaughn, and talking about the Middle East and Gaza and calling it a genocide. And these are not compassionate people and empathetic people. And even Joe Rogan expressing like human concern for Palestinians. Where does that? I'm of Palestinian heritage, so I'm like, okay, this is weird. Why are you saying nice things about Palestinians when you're not? If Rogan's different, he was a comic and whatever, he's a guy. Some of these other guys, I'm not sure if they're truly cruel or not, but a lot of that bro stuff and cruelty is part of it. Yet they show this weird compassion to Palestinians. Is there something I'm missing?
What you're missing is that they know that they have an audience, and they know, I mean, listen, if you've been a stand-up comic and you've been in front of a crowd, you can tell the mood of a crowd, and you can tell that you need to acknowledge what's happening in the room. And what's happening in all of our rooms right now when we open up our phones, we're seeing war crimes, we're seeing devastation, we're seeing children with no limbs. Miss Rachel is hugging them. And if you don't acknowledge that that's happening, then clearly you aren't existing in the same plane as me. They all see, everybody is seeing the very similar things. It's a matter of how high amount you see. But we all, when you open up Instagram Reels, TikTok, Twitter, anything, you know what's happening. The difference between a lot of, I would say, on the Democratic side, a lot of them were very worried before when Joe Biden was in power to acknowledge it because they were like, well, I don't know how to handle it. They didn't know how to message it. Now that Trump, I mean, listen, Theo Von was sitting across from JD Vance.
I saw it.
And he said, he used mealy mouth words. He said, I've called it a genocide. He didn't just say it is a genocide. He said, I've called it a genocide. He then allowed Vance to make some bullshit statement and then pivot into talking about Ukraine. Because again, he's setting him up. If you view it as a two-man comedy show in front of a live audience and how you're going to get through the evening, that's what this is. This is all a performance. It's all kayfabe. It's all wrestling. And that the Democrats can't seem to fucking understand this because they're too busy trying to figure out the corporate branding to be able to put on the right pamphlet to get people to show up to vote. But in reality, if you can't acknowledge that every single person in the world has watched a genocide happen live on their phones while they take a shit at work, then you're not going to win. Because why the fuck would I listen to you? And this is what's happening slowly over and over and over again across there. And they're allowed to call this stuff out. They're allowed to do a little thing here, a little thing there, so that way they can also then reclaim their independence and claim that they're not actually state-run media when they really are. It's kayfabe.
That's interesting. No, I appreciate you explaining it too, because I fear deep down there was some anti-Semitism fueling what they were doing as opposed to actually compassion.
Oh, there's a little bit of that too. There's a little bit of that too.
There's a little bit of
it's a little
that.
Look,
Right.
there's conspiracies within conspiracies,
So
and
there's a lot of stuff. So it's multi-layered, but all right.
Yeah.
But there is
Like
some sincere,
multi-layered
because
marketing.
the real world, our people are seeing this and unfiltered now, and it's no longer corporate media being the gatekeepers. And yeah, and Democrat, I don't want to relitigate 2024. I'll lose my mind. I'm telling you, Dr. Andrea Jones-Rooy and Lizz Winstead and Alex Pearlman. So look, we mentioned Newsom earlier. And people have issues with Newsom. He's not whatever, not left, he's liberal, whatever you might be, opportunistic. He's been pretty good. He gave a speech, a national address, so to speak, a few nights ago. And the words he's using in that and other things are the right ones, that he's not saying common ground and I want to work with the president. He's calling him a guy who wants to be a dictator, who he said, used the word, he wants a civil war. He said it's a war on democracy because you can't give in to him. And look, you can say, again, maybe it's opportunistic Gavin Newsom. I'm not sure, but I at least like the words and the fighting spirit. And I want more Democrats. So, Andrea, I mean, what is your take? And I know people have, there's a lot of baggage Newsom comes with that I wasn't even unaware of. I kind of followed him, but people were like, I don't like it for this or that. I'm like, but do you just like this? Forget in a vacuum. That's all I'm asking.
I mean, it's one of those where it's like, as you're describing it, I think, well, it would be nice to not end up in a civil war as a country, or a violent civil war. I would prefer that, just if I have the choice, and maybe
Sure.
ask me. But so it's like I would prefer not to escalate, and so it's like pushing back on Trump sort of seems like it's escalating. But then I think about how in my elementary school there was always that rule that like if you were involved in a fight, you got suspended even if you didn't start it, and that always felt really unjust to me. It's like someone comes up and punches you, and then you get in trouble for punching back. And so I have that kind of same feeling about this, where it's like I listen to it and I'm like, thank God someone is standing up to Trump. And this is a wildly unpopular take, but I remember during COVID, I'm in New York City, when Cuomo would push back on Trump as the governor of New York. And I really appreciated that. Cuomo has all kinds of problems, but it's like we need someone who can stand up to this bully. And if I were the governor of California, it's hard to imagine a world where I wouldn't try to really stand up for the state and push back. So even though I would prefer no civil war, I also like that he's doing that. Am I allowed to talk about those people?
And Liz, what were you going to say? Because I know that you travel.
I mean, I have a couple of feelings about it. One, he's had opportunity to do this and was not strong enough after the fires when Trump was going to cut off federal aid and all that stuff, and he sat and I feel like this is an opportunity. What are you going to do? It's in your backyard now, but also he sat and waited for other governors to break that ground. When you look at Pritzker and when you look at Tim Walz, they have been unequivocal in what they have said. Yesterday, J.D. Pritzker was brilliant before Congress, just being like, how dare you, Lauren Boebert, you blow-jobbing nightmare. Like, what? And I mean, I don't think he said those words. I'm paraphrasing. But he probably would,
Exactly right.
And so Gavin Newsom, I've been following that dude's career since like 2004. And like, his choices of Kimberly Guilfoyle should set everybody into skepticism throughout his entire choices of whatever he does. And so, sure, I'm glad he's being forceful, but for the love of God, why shouldn't he be? It was like when everybody was saying how great Giuliani was during, 9/11. It's like
Yeah.
that Gollum.
Yeah.
What are you gonna do? Run? Like it's happening to your town and your people. You have to step forward and do the least at doing the most. I don't know. And it's also comparing it to what people aren't doing. If everybody was out there being as forceful as they should be, that we are living in the middle of a fascist takeover that is taking over, how would he fare? If everybody was J.D. Pritzker, how does he fare? And that's the question we have to ask.
I think it's very interesting. And Alex, before I go to you, I mean, look, there are Democrats in Congress who have been fighting the good fight, but it's the same handful that people call my show. Meanwhile, I saw some Democrats in Congress today who don't are like kind of quiet, and they're posting things, we stand with Israel. And I'm like, why didn't you talk about how about you stand against fascism? Like, where are your posts on that? And Donald Trump's threat to us, because it's the kind of corporatist Richie Torres view of democracy that we live through. I live in New York, and he should be the most liberal guy in the House. Meanwhile, his job is really working for AIPAC. And I hate to say that, but that's the truth. So Alex, I mean, where do you come down on Newsom? Do you give him any credit for fighting the good fight, or is it just an opportunistic move by this guy?
Gavin Newsom would rather reign in hell than serve in heaven. He is the biggest. Gavin Newsom is the most opportunistic, probably demon in the history of the Democratic Party.
Demon?
That being said, if he is the general, I will follow him into battle. I mean, that's just kind of where we're stuck with right now. When you look around, I'm very glad Liz brought up J.B. Pritzker and Tim Walz. J.B. Pritzker has been, especially, I believe, the most forceful in his language. I love my governor, Josh Shapiro, here in Pennsylvania, but I believe in my heart that he has been trying to stay a lot too locally in the moment that we have been existing in. And a lot of the Democratic governors have been trying to do that. They would rather be cutting a ribbon, looking at opening new highways or some shit like that, than talking about what's happening at a national level right now. We have a pretty when it comes to just the drive that some of these guys have to have, I'm not looking for someone who wants to show me how powerful they can be so then they can eventually get the Democratic nomination in 2028. I'm looking for someone to protect us today. And they don't seem to understand that right now. And what I'm seeing from Newsom, I'm not seeing protection. I'm seeing a drive for aiming for what we are already ready and mentally prepared for, which is setting up a campaign for 3.5 years from now. And like, I'm seeing he's doing some pushback. There's doing some lawsuits, some other things like this, but there's very obvious stuff that's about to happen that we're clearly seeing sitting on the edge. They're not signaling that they're preparing for at any state. I mean, at most state levels.
And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to jump in there, but and just to jump off of that, which I 100% agree with you. And I think that in the forceful nature, and which is why Pritzker is so impressive to me, is helping people understand and focus their rage on the fact that your state is not safe because the federal government is doing everything in its power to take away the sovereignty of where you live. Yep. And, for me, it was like trying to remind people back when we lost Roe that if you didn't live in Mississippi just destroyed access to abortion because of a lawsuit that came out of Mississippi and because of how this whole country works. Mm-hmm. And so within the rage also needs to be where we have our strength is being stolen illegally, unconstitutionally, and you cannot hide. So also empowering people to, it's like, it's your government. I can tell you what I can do, but look, folks, you gotta show up and you gotta do it. So that's my stupid filibuster. Sorry. Go ahead, Alex.
I recently made a video where I posted and I was saying that I'm tired. It's not about optics anymore. It's about power. It's not about, because people are yelling about what flags to be carrying at protests,
Yes.
what to be doing, or any of this different stuff. I'm like, the optics don't matter anymore. It's about what power do we have and how many we can save and where we can get things set up. And if you want to see that video, you can find it on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/Pearlmania500. Also, where my new comedy special is. I do stand-up comedy.
You can plug
Occasionally,
anything
I'm
you
funny.
want.
It's
Please.
called Daddy's Day.
Yeah.
It's a great new special.
Yeah,
It's live
no.
up there right now.
Because I think, to your point, Alex, which I think can't be said enough, they do not think you deserve your humanity. So it doesn't matter what suit you wear, what flag you carry, what you do. They don't think you deserve the humanity that is in the world. And they don't believe that human beings who are here deserve the same rights under the Constitution.
I agree.
They just don't care.
And I made the point early on when they arrested Mahmoud Khalil for, and I kept telling people, forget that I'm a Palestinian heritage. That's not what this is about. It doesn't end there. That's where it begins. I said, don't you understand? If you don't fight that, and it's gotten so much worse on so many levels, from targeting law firms to media outlets to people to ABC paying $15 million, thinking it was going to save them, and it didn't save them. They started a whole new investigation, and the list goes on. Now, mass deportations to death camps in El Salvador, sending people to South Sudan who have no connection to South Sudan, knowing it's a humanitarian crisis, essentially sending them to die, and now coming for Senator Padilla, and we're not even close to the end. But look, we got a few minutes left. This Saturday is the big No Kings protest. It's going to happen everywhere. And I just want to get your sense, like, first, if you're going to go or not, and how important is it for people to come out this kind of thing? So, Andrea, let's start with you, my friend.
I was afraid you would start with me, Dean. And the reason I was afraid is because I am accidentally becoming a little bit of a Ted Cruz in this situation, in that my partner and I have a trip to South America planned, and we're leaving tonight.
That's great.
We booked it like a year ago, and I just feel quite terrible that it's like, yeah, big protest, super important to be there. I would be there, but I am leaving the country to disappear for about a week. But I'm there in spirit. And
but how important is it in the big picture? You're a data scientist.
Yeah.
Tell us, in the bigger picture, for people to see mass movement out in the streets opposing Donald Trump.
It's incredibly important, and there is a lot of research. I mean, it's very, very difficult to understand from a data perspective how effective protests are, because it's very hard to disentangle. Did the policy change because of the protest, or did they protest? It's very difficult to understand. But there's a fair amount of research that shows that protests are very good at signaling awareness and spreading awareness. And so the more people can come out, the more the leadership, the more the country, the more the government, the more the other side can see how important this is, and this is a force to be reckoned with. And I think even more importantly, in this case, it could potentially activate and motivate other people who don't necessarily think of themselves as protesters, or people who aren't as following the news as the folks on your show and all of us here. People who say, oh, maybe, this isn't really going to affect me. It's just this one person. It's California.
Right.
All of those sorts of people. The bigger the protest, really the messaging is to other people vaguely on the left, moderates, anyone who's like, I think this might be going a little bit too far. That's where I think the real symbolism, because the top isn't listening to us, but other people, our neighbors who think that they're undecided, they'll see. And that's where the real impact.
That's great. And by the way, before, because we're not going to have time to come back, where can people follow your work, my friend?
You can find me at Jones-Rooy, JONESROOY on social media. And my podcast is BehindTheDataShow.com.
And Liz, what about you? What's the importance of Saturday? And also plug whatever you want.
So the importance of Saturday is twofold for me, and it's what I say every single time. I've said it on the show a million times. Show up. I wish that instead of people having flags at all, they simply said, I will vote in the next election. So that it's very clear that it's just not that people are making a plan to make a change, but also showing the amount of people is important. Finding something that you can consistently do with your activism afterwards is what sustains, whether it's abortion and we give you things, whether if it's immigration you want to do, hook up with sanctuary churches. Can you make casseroles? Can you do that? What is your capacity to stay in? Here's my new unthought out bad idea that I had this morning when I woke up. Any person who employs immigrant domestic help should be picking their children up from school to keep them safe. You go get those kids so that they're safe. Bring them to your home. Think of ways and work with organizations who can give you, and this is important, tangible heart-to-heart pieces of activism that you can do that is actually saying, from me to you as the person who is most affected, I want you to know that you're supported, because that keeps people in the game and that keeps you sustaining in this. The marches are, I oppose. The rest of it is I participate.
And where can people follow your work, my friend?
Oh, yeah. You can follow me at Lizz Winstead all over social media. I'm all there screaming my crap. And then please follow Abortion Access Front, my organization, at Abortion Front across all the platforms, and certainly donate at aafront.org.
Alex, and for you, how important is it to see a lot of people in the street? How important do you think this is in inspiring other people to stand up to Donald Trump and know they're not alone?
It's going to be incredibly important, because I think one thing that we think is we all think that we see the same things on the feeds. We all think we're in the same algorithms. We all think that we're watching the same shows. And so slowly, when people realize that their next door neighbor, their coworker, their friends, their family members are the ones who are in the streets, they'll start to realize it'll break the spell that these podcasts and other things have cast on them. The reason why we see so many people who regret their vote for Donald Trump is because they believed that there were nobody who was voting against him in the last election, because of the way, again, these algorithms and everything else works. We have to break through the messaging. The revolution will not be televised or any of those different things, because right now it knows exactly who to send the images to. So to anyone out there who is listening, if you can't make it to the protest, I will be at the protest in Philadelphia, the birthplace of freedom. I will be there on the Ben Franklin Parkway, from Love Park all the way to the Philadelphia Art Museum, the best art museum in the world, right next to the Rocky statue, even though Sylvester Stallone's a Trump supporter and we all fucking hate him. I'll be there, okay? But if you can't get to a protest, I understand. You have kids to watch after. You have to work on a Saturday, any of those different things. You do not understand how important it will be for you to share it in your stories, how important it will be you to retweet, how important will it be for you to get through there to break through the algorithmic corrections that they are not going to be showing people in the For You feeds. And how important it will be for you to speak out at your local church, at your work, any of those different places, and just say, you know what, this shit sucks. That's the most important thing we can do, because eventually, when enough people point out that the emperor has no clothes and possibly a catheter bag strapped around his leg as he watches Les Mis scream that they can hear the people sing, then eventually he might actually get scared and start listening to what the people actually want. If you want to follow me because you want to hear more of this, you can find me at Pearlmania 500 anywhere across the internet. Pearlmania 500, and my podcast is called Too Many Tabs. Listen to it wherever podcasts are played.
Well, all three of you were great. I really appreciate you being on. Have a great vacation, Andrea. I hope you get back in the country. Look forward to speaking to all of you in the future.